it's all
I'd say around about 2015 and vast sway of society was getting bored with the official narrative, such as what the BBC put out, Facebook, Twitter, a lot of these sort of sites, and they were sort of searching for alternative sites, and what I believe came from the Cabinet Office and maybe the Mindscape programme was they wanted to get everyone centred into one specific area, and I believe that area online was the Speaker's Corner down by Hyde Park. A lot of daily dramas, it's just constant. You have certain characters. The people in this video, I'm not insinuating that they work for the government or that they're some form of characters. I'm just showing you the daily dramas which have been happening quite a lot here for quite a few years, and it seemed to get everyone who wanted to sort of do something locally driven into the central point of division and dramas and daily beefs, and there isn't really much remedies and ways of looking forward as communities. It seems to be a massive honeypot, a melting pot for all the religions, all the races, all the ideas, all the political movements, and that in a way is good, but at the same time it becomes violent and issues are never really solved. And you could watch a video 3 years ago and nothing's changed. I'm thinking it's a place where they analyse, they get everyone's data. Same on YouTube, all these videos that people put out of Speaker's Corner and the certain characters, and then the reactions to all these characters around. This is all just data mining and trying to pigeonhole everyone into certain sections so that they control the narrative that way. Because they don't want people searching for alternative ideas and then building on these ideas.
Violence is when you punch a disabled Muslim brother. You did that. You're on camera doing that. He deserved it. He deserved the violence. You decide who deserves violence in Speaker's Corner. So why are you speaking to me then? Why are you speaking to me?
You idiot, I was speaking. I didn't invite you to speak to me.
You did. You said come over here.
You came here.
You said come over here.
And you stood like a bitch speaking. And I told you come and speak here. I'm not afraid from you.
Unfortunately,
Come back.
unfortunately,
What can I do?
Ahmed Alopecia, the only bitch is your mum. The only bitch.
Relax.
Why you wanna fight him, man?
Following the events of the previous week,
The only bitch is your mum.
Oh, shit. Guys, get you,
Mohammed Hijab would confront Jedi about his behaviour.
Have you got a rule book? You can't tell me nothing about unacceptable behaviour, fam. You can't tell me nothing about unacceptable behaviour.
This video is going to focus on a controversial figure who frequents Speaker's Corner, goes by the name of Ralph Masalamani. He's kind of new to the scene, and he seems to attract a very diverse opinion of himself from others. From people claiming he's the next Messiah, to others believing he could be an undercover agent. I think he's dangerous, and this video or two will aim to explain why I think that is.
I would string you up in a prison and desensitize you. I'd bow.
This video will be one long game of
But she said.
Thank you, Ralph. I'm going to try and figure out the truth behind Ralph Masalamani deception using only his words.
I'm not trying to deny any words I've said on video camera. That would be absurd.
Ralph, slow down. You're getting ahead of yourself. Now, if you've not met Ralph, he describes himself as a neo-reactionary, further right than a fascist. I'm just going to give you a few examples of some of the things he says, give you a bit of a flavour of the kind of guy he is.
You will spread mistruths to suit your agenda.
Our agenda.
Exactly.
So does that mean that you're willing to misrepresent the other side to win the round?
We believe we're
It's a direct question.
morally right.
It's a direct question.
Absolutely.
So you're willing to misrepresent?
I would string you up in a prison and desensitize you. I'd bow.
You know words have power, right?
Absolutely.
And the way it's framed as a Muslim, that's very, very specific.
Correct.
And you knew that on purpose.
Oh, we're doing it deliberately too.
You are doing deliberately.
No, because we're in a war with
so
Islam.
they're doing it deliberately,
Because we're
but
not
then
part
it's
of the-
not.
part of the war
Thank
with
you. I'm
Islam.
glad you've admitted. Okay,
I
let
acknowledge
me.
that we're using it like Goebbels for propaganda.
So Goebbels, who was Goebbels? A Nazi.
Hitler's
So you're using it like a Nazi.
Yeah, just like a mullah
Goebbels
would
was
do.
a.
Hail Boris.
Now, you're probably instantly thinking this guy seems crazy and he shouldn't be taken seriously, and I would have to agree. But the problem is, people do take him seriously, especially his disciples that he always seems to have hanging around. So we know Ralph lies. The question is, how much? And what is true and what is not?
Well, there's that. It's like surrounded by trolls now, bro. Literally surrounded. It's like when there's actually something really happening and real stuff going on. It's like they're nowhere to be seen, bruv. It's like they've fallen off. Now we're just left with sort of like half-hearted, like a joke thing. But anyway, brother, go on.
I think about a week ago on Zabida's panel, I said that things seem to be escalating towards something, and then last week she gets slapped.
What are you thinking though, Dan? Are you honestly thinking just everything's proxy, just literally everything, from the slap to the Christian brother?
No. It's not really that. It's just that the reaction to it is like managed and like kind of planned, I suppose.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, bro, look. So I'm a face of it.
If you look at the part today, right? Anyone who had like a reputation, it seems, stayed away. I could be wrong, but most of the Dawa teams who are normally down there, they weren't anywhere to be seen.
What about
that was interesting. So then what you're left with is the so-called dregs, yeah? So these are the people who don't really have a reputation. They might be new to the parts, of like individuals, right? Newcomers, sort of layman Muslim, youths from Edgware Road. It's a whole mix of people. There was maybe about 40 or 50 of them today, yeah? I think the sort of idea is that if that demographic was attracted to the park, it would kick off. That's what I think they thought.
Okay, so wait, hold on. It was 40, 50 people on the right, or you're talking just
there was about 40 or 50 Muslims there, I would say.
All right, okay. And you said there's a mixture of brothers in that, yeah?
There was a couple hundred Tommy / Hattoon supporters there, but I think there was
okay, it's like a 5-to-1 thing then.
Because I'd like to talk about these new movements that have cropped up, and some people who are behind certain action. So we've got Stand Up X and we've got Keep Britain Free. Both of them are linked to the multimillionaire Simon Dolan, who's supposedly fighting the government on our behalf. This Simon Dolan multimillionaire is taking supposedly the government to court over the lockdown. So he's chosen as his barrister Philip Havers. The case is being paid for by the public, who have been crowdfunded to the tune of nearly £250,000. So I think that gives the public the right to full disclosure, don't you? The barrister that he's chosen, Philip Havers, The barrister's father is the Lord High Chancellor of the UK. The same barrister's father was on the War Cabinet of the Thatcher government. His father was also involved in covering up paedophile cases. The barrister who was chosen to save us is the son of Lord Michael Havers, the top legal man in the UK when Sir Jimmy Savile and his politician friends were reportedly raping and murdering children throughout the UK. His father also tried to get the Ripper off with a diminished responsibility plea. This man, his father, intervened 3 times between 1981 and 1983 to stop the investigation and the exposure of establishment paedophiles and to prevent the publication of stories which showed that establishment figures were members of the paedophile information exchange. He tried to silence the child abuse whistleblower, the MP Geoffrey Dickens, and Havers' sister, so this is the barristers fighting for us as aunt, Baroness Butler Sloss, headed the child abuse inquiry, whose own brother played such a major role in the protection of establishment paedophiles throughout the 90s. She also chaired the inquest into the death of Lady Diana, but she resigned when it was clear that she wasn't going to have full control over the inquest because Dodie's father won the right to a jury. This is the father and the aunt of the barristers fighting for Simon Dolan's case against the government. And his solicitor, Francis, is counsel for Facebook on electoral issues, and he's also the person who's going to be advising the Tory party campaign. The same multi-millionaire Simon Dolan was given a government contract to supply the NHS with PPE during this period. He also has an accountancy firm called Dolan Accountancy, which during the lockdown has hosted articles which are actually praising the government for the speed of their help to small businesses and such. So, you know, it's rather odd that this person is taking the government to court. The fact that if you look again and listen to the Event 201, you will hear that this tabletop exercises that they had in October, just before all of this kicked off, also spoke about having business people not only helping them with PPE, but also helping them to create the storyline of this pandemic. So bear that in mind also. And having outed Mark Steele as a paid operator, it's interesting to see how these movements incorporate these known infiltrators. Of course, people who are joining outraged about coronavirus, I've got no clue at all about the history or the past of these gatekeepers. Another Simon Dolan fan, Anna Breeze, is also ex-BBC journalist who's been getting a lot of airtime lately, also appears to contradict herself, her claims in her own social media. Yeah, so I actually went along to one of these Stand Up X's demos that they held in Brighton a couple of weeks ago. And to be honest with you, they weren't overly happy about me asking to speak. I had to actually ask them 5 times. They said in the end, yeah, you can if you hurry up. But I do think that the compare was being genuine. I think the other speakers were none too concerned about what I was actually talking about or whether I got to speak or whatever. Anyway, so what do I think? Well, I think personally that these protests are going to be they're co-opted already by those people leading them, and they're also that when the time comes, they will use these protests for whatever point they want, whether it's to blame them people for creating another lockdown and causing a massive social divide. I don't know, but all I know is that for a government to be saying you can't do this, you can't do that, and all these rules and regulations, letting this protest go on, to me, big red flag. So I'm just going to get on to this Kate Shami Rani, because that's what I'm going to call her, a sham. So here's a woman who's got herself all over mainstream media as the voice of the campaign, mentored by none other than Mark Steele himself, who I have shown with in-depth evidence and research is a paid facilitator. And of course I will leave the link to that. So this Shamirani woman supposedly was suspended from the Nurse and Midwifery Council because of her views on the coronavirus. Yeah. So if you look at the Nursing and Midwifery Council, they list all the people who are being given interim suspensions, and if you go from January to June, in the 6 months previous to her so-called order, you'll notice that there's at least 30 or 40 people a month who have had their names put up for an interim suspension. And you'll notice that every single person's suspension takes between 4 to 6 months for it to be taken to the next stage to be confirmed. So you're looking at 180 to 200 people up to this point all had to wait 4 to 6 months for the final suspension to be confirmed. Not so Shaminari. No. Out of all the people who have been put in for an interim suspension, she's the only one. When you go on to, apparently it was confirmed on the 14th of July, but then when you go on to the same website and look at the hearings for the 14th that happened on that day, it's nowhere to be found. So a meeting that they're claiming where she was suspended in record time, and yet it hasn't got that actual virtual hearing on their website. They do list it as the outcome, but the actual hearing is not listed. So, she's got Mark Steele as a Mackenzie friend at a hearing that's not listed on that day. Now, the reason all of this is significant is because the virtual meeting that she is reported to have attended with Mark Steele on the 14th is not listed for that day's meetings. Just like Mark Steele's Crown Court case was never listed in the law pages. People don't get represented on mainstream unless they're part of the show. It's time people realise that, surely by now.
I'm going to look deeply into who runs Extinction Rebellion and links with the telecommunications industry, as well as 5G. The material in this video has been well researched, and I am simply sharing what is already in the public domain. Originating from individuals who have been involved in environmental activism for some years and are personally acquainted with people in Extinction Rebellion. With that said, the authors have felt for some time that the groups which make up the climate activism movement are being misdirected away from positive and effective environmental action, and instead being pushed towards a narrow set of goals linked to commercial interests. In order to understand an organization or entity, one must first come to an understanding of its founders. Dr. Gail Marie Bradbrook, along with Julian Roger Hallam, appear to be the two primary instigators of the Extinction Rebellion movement. Extinction Rebellion has scored significant publicity, not just on social media, but also on the BBC News and in The Guardian. The movement launched itself very publicly on November the 12th, 2018, with activists gluing themselves to the doors of the Department of Energy offices in London and spray painting slogans on the windows. Then more recently in April 2019, shutting down areas of London, costing businesses millions of pounds. They are demanding that the UK government immediately declares a climate and ecological emergency, reduces to zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2025, and creates a citizens' assembly to oversee these changes. They have also encouraged people in other countries to take up their cause. The hope appears to be that the movement will catch on in a similar manner to how the Arab Spring or colour revolutions did, bringing nations to a standstill and thus forcing politicians' hands. Gail Bradbrook, who is the closest person to a leader in the movement, currently works for Citizens Online, which has charity status. Her ex-partner John Fisher founded Citizens Online and is currently the CEO. Fisher used to be in the RAF, was a former director at Swindon Council, and is currently a government advisor. Gail has been working for him since 2003. Here is part of a speech given by Gail Bradbrook at a joint Institute for Public Policy Research and Oxford Internet Institute conference entitled Whose Responsibility is Digital Inclusion? Let's come clean about Citizens Online and our staff. We describe ourselves as an independent national charity focusing on the use of information and communications technology by socially excluded communities. But it's all just a cover. In reality, what we actually are secret agents. Secret agents with one purpose in life: to find out what government is really doing with a digital inclusion agenda. So here we have Gail stating that Citizens Online are only describing themselves as an independent national charity, but what they really are secret agents. Next up is Gail's profile from the Citizens Online website. Since winter last year it was removed from the site, but fortunately we had it downloaded already. As you can see here, Gail works with EE, which is rolling out 5G this year in the UK. It is unclear precisely when, or more importantly how, Gail transitioned to causes like climate change, but what we do know is that for the past 2 decades she has been a favoured activist of the British state, at least when it comes to their digital inclusion and universal internet access agendas. These euphemisms today refer to the 5G Internet of Things rollout, aimed at making sure that absolutely everybody, without exception, gets plugged into the emerging smart grid, which incorporates both military hardware used for crowd control, surveillance and communication systems. The 5G network is primary to this apparatus, an essential component for the scientific management global society, as envisioned and now being assembled all around us by an international oligarchy of techno-industrial and financial elites, the very same people who stand behind the UN and are positioned to become its beneficiaries. Here's another excerpt from Gail Bradbrook's same speech, the same as a secret agent's quote, on the Institute for Public Policy Research website. So who done it? Who really is the government's digital inclusion unit? This investigator begs your indulgence for the arrogance that could be displayed here when I say that I believe Citizens Online have played that role, unofficially and certainly not paid for by government. Who has paid for it? Industry. Our Alliance for Digital Inclusion partners have understood the importance of the strategic coordinating role alongside the delivery of projects on the ground. AOL, BT, Cisco, IBM, Intel, Microsoft and T-Mobile are all supporting this work. So a plea to the new government: see industry as partners and not as cash cows, and value the knowledge of Citizens Online and our other third sector colleagues. We had to work hard to get it. There you have it. She's admitted that she is funded by the telecommunications industry, the same industry that is rolling out 5G on our streets, as well as having the ear of government. Many of the directors and trustees of Gail's Citizens Online charity just so happen to be people whose companies stand to make an absolute killing from this 5G rollout, which is covertly promoted by Extinction Rebellion due to its coming under the auspices of the United Nations Agenda 2030, the current rebranding of Agenda 21.
What is coming down the track and why do you need to know about it? Very quickly, we've warned in a pretty comprehensive analysis the dangers of Bill Gates behind government policy over COVID, but of course sponsoring Imperial College and thereby helping Mr. Ferguson with millions and millions of dollars donated directly into Imperial College. But of course people also working through on the SAGE group also being financed by this gentleman. Professor Chris Whitty, the chief medical officer, he got money to do with a malaria project in Africa, so certainly relations very easy. But we've also warned about this. Back in 2013, we highlighted that UK government said it was going to unleash behavioural psychology to change the way the public thought and behaved. And of course, if you're going to do that, you're going to control the media. And what have we got in this present COVID episode? We've got here that the government's applied behavioural psychology team said we needed to up the use of fear to get the COVID message across. It also said that consideration should be given for the use of social disapproval, turning one section of the community against another. And we also know, of course, that it has killed off tens of thousands of elderly people. So central to the propaganda from the government has been deaths of people, but no outrage. On top of it, Mike, you've highlighted the intelligence and the information, the data gathering through to the NHS. And we've also just covered it yet again, the fact that we've now got this lot of security people and the army now alongside that data gathering and AI in the NHS. And we can also say that the fusion doctrine we've warned about over a great many months, showing that something was happening to democracy in this country which wasn't declared. We'll add that to the mix. Other people have pointed out that Cummings has been up to the repurposing of government, and we've also reported on that. But the quote here from True Publica was that this government wants the chaos because the chaos is the key to the change. And we bring in where it's heading. Well, where is it heading? It's heading following the repurposing of government society to the reset, which the Guardian was admitting here via the World Economic Forum, and of course Charlie Boy. So what's coming down the track is immensely dangerous, because we've got the complete change of democracy in UK on the back of COVID, and the fact that ultimately this forms part of a change worldwide through the reset. People need to understand what this is and why the government isn't talking about it.